Hi, I'm Brent Johnson, and today I'm at St. John's Episcopal Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma. With me is Joseph Arndt. He's the director of music here, and we are sitting at a beautiful Schoenstein organ from 2018, correct?
Yes, 2018.
So this is still a brand new baby for you guys.
It is.
What was here before we had this beautiful Schoenstein?
Before the Schoenstein, there was a 1966 Moeller, and it was pretty typical of its period, especially in Oklahoma. You know, a lot of churches in this part of the country are relatively new. I moved here from the Northeast, and a lot of organs and churches up there from the 19th century, early 20th century. Mm-hmm. So this is still, I would say, a relatively old building for Oklahoma. You know, this church was finished in about 1959.
Okay.
So a lot of churches were being founded or built in the 50s, you know, sort of that post-war boom area. So
I would say this church is old enough now, it's got its second generation organ already. So
yes, definitely.
And progress. Well, I have to say, when you step into this, before I've heard a note, the most stunning thing is this facade of this instrument. How did this come to be, that was something that was important to this church?
Well, certainly the organ being the musical instrument came first, which we'll talk about. But I felt it was really important when we put a new instrument in like this, that when parishioners who gave so generously walk into the space, they see a difference. Mm-hmm. And you know, the previous Moeller organ had a nice enough, but I would say not a spectacular, sort of just wooden screen there.
Okay.
And I just felt like people should walk in and see a difference. And of course, we all know that an organ can be such an artistic aspect visually of a church, not just orally, but
very true. And so you used the old space, the old chambers from the Moeller organ.
Yes.
Just installed the organ there and added a new facade. Well,
yes. So Jack Bethards has an artist in California who made a special trip here to take pictures, and he brought color samples. And so I'll just say I really wanted the facade to bring out the blue, it's sort of royal blue, and with the conic stained glass in here and gold leaf. But then the artist just took it from there. He made a cream color that sort of is a combination of colors you find in the stone walls, and he took other elements from the space. You know, we've got those quatrefoils, which are at the top of the case, and those wooden little tablets. And he has crosses, and there are various things you notice the more you pay attention.
Well, it works really well in the room, and I hope that inspires more people to think about really artistic facades.
Certainly, I feel like I don't think there's anything like it in the area here.
Definitely.
And I think that my goal, of course, was for it to look, you know, decades from now like it was always here. So
I think you've succeeded. It looks wonderful. Let's talk about the tonal resources in this instrument, though. How many ranks do we have total?
Well, it's 38.
Okay, 38 ranks, and we've got 4 divisions. And we have choir and swell and grade are all enclosed. Is that correct?
The choir and the swell is enclosed, and of course part of the swell is doubly enclosed.
Okay, right. We have the double enclosures. We'll talk about that and how that works. But let's start with the grate then, that's out here in the open, right behind the facade. And usually we just start with, let's hear the first open there and how the principal chorus builds up from there.
Sure. Well, with Schoenstein, of course, one of the signature sounds of theirs, I would say, is the 8-foot diapason tone, and we've got, I would say, 4 distinct 8-foot manual diapasons. Okay. So I'd say the softest of those is really on the choir. We've got I think in the Schoenstein world, a Dulciana is really, I think Jack kind of considers it a soft.
That's generally where it comes from.
Yeah, diapason. So here we go. This is, I'd say, the softest one. And then next in strength is the great second. A little more string-like.
Yeah, okay. A little bit bigger.
Mm-hmm. And then the horn diapason on the swell, which is slotted.
Okay.
And then the first, of course, is the biggest.
Yeah, Yeah, big, very forward first open diapason, which is something I know a lot of builders are sort of returning to. That was kind of
Yes.
an early American sound, to have everything sort of behind that first, and the first leads the singing and leads the way. So, yeah, we hear that here.
So if I build up the chorus, here the principal chorus, so over here the two great 8-foot diapasons together. I'll add the 4-foot. And the 2-foot. And then the mixture, and then on the grate also we've got sort of the cornet ranks as principal ranks, and we like to have those with the principal chorus.
Okay.
So here it is without them first.
With a 3 and 4 rank mixture on top of there, which
Yes.
is not real super bright. It adds some brightness to the chorus, but it's
Right,
a little more
right.
reserved.
Right, and then I'll add the 12th and the 17th. It gives that slight, reed color, and I've always felt like having the 17th and the 12th gives it that sort of English sound.
It does, and well, then you can also use those as a little solo cornet if you want on the grate.
Right.
Against something else in
Right.
the division.
Right. Exactly right. So sometimes I like to take the 15th off for some variety.
Yeah, very colorful little collection of principles there.
So this acoustic we're in really magnifies soprano tone. So you always hear the sopranos in the choir. So I think Jack and the guys at Schoenstein were really smart in the way they designed this instrument tonally, because I think this one is very balanced. You've got lots of 8-foot, and then you do have upper work, but it just crowns the ensemble rather than dominating it.
That makes sense. Well, in the grate we also have a double diapason, 16-foot. And is that the second bar down?
Yes.
That's a very typical thing to do. Yeah.
Yes.
So let's hear that with the 16 and the full principal chorus.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a nice full sound and,
It is.
and great for hymn accompaniment. Oh, we also have a couple of flutes in there in the grate.
Yes.
Right.
So we have a metal 8-foot Borden, which contrasts with the stopped flute on the swell, which is of course wood.
Yeah.
And then the harmonic flute, which really blossoms in this mid-range here.
Schoenstein harmonic flutes are amazing. Right? And then we have a 4-foot. Is that an extension or is that an independent flute?
That's a separate.
Oh, wow. You do have 3 flutes there in the grate in addition to all of
Yes,
those. So
there's a lot of variety, and I think you'll see that as we get more and more into the instrument.
Good. And then we have a reed on top of all of that. Is that in
Yes.
the trumpet? The trumpet there is in the grate.
Yes. So it's higher in the chamber. Yep.
Very nice, big bright trumpet there.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's go on from there. Where should we look at next?
Oh, we can go right to the swell and then maybe come back
Okay, let's see
later
what
to the choir.
we have in the swell here.
Okay, so it is really nice to have the foundation of the swell be a diapason. And so that I feel like everything grows from there. So we've got this really beautiful horn diapason. But then amongst the other 8-foot foundation stops, we have, as I said, a stopped diapason, which is, of course, wood. It just has a different character from the.
They're
from the
both very
grade.
gentle
Yeah.
and it gives you some options there. Good. All right.
And then the strings, so that we have a very keen 8-foot gamba. and those really fade away in the double expression. So here it is with the Gamba Celeste. Maybe I'll add some couplers there. And then they can really fade away.
Yeah, very effective boxes in there. The way that works.
For sure.
Very good. All right.
So in the swell, there are different stop jams with a dot at the top.
I see.
And that corresponds with this expression pedals. So those are the ones that are in the inner swell.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, just because it may be a new idea. So you have a swell box, and then there's another box behind it.
Correct.
With shades. So some of the stops have to go through 2 sets of shades before they get out.
Correct.
So you have 2 levels of volume you can control. So which stops have they indicated are in the second box as well?
So we've got the Gamba Celeste, and then you've got the mixture, which is a bit stronger than the great mixture,
Okay.
which you'll hear. And then the 8-foot Cornopian, and 8-foot Fragato, and 16-foot Contra.
So your big loud reeds and your bright mixture, and then those soft strings are the things that you have actually the most volume control on.
Yes, and I would say it's really when you have full swell behind the great 8-foots, and you open both boxes, however you want to do it, I think it creates the effect of really having more stops than are really here,
Okay.
because you have such a
You've got the open stops and then the double
right,
open stops.
right. And so like for example, if I put on full swell and I put on these 8-foots, obviously some really strong tone there, and then I add the coupler.
So you bring on the louder parts of the swell sort of after you've already brought up most of the swell. So.
Correct, right.
All right, okay. Well, so that's how that works, and then you've just been given an extra expression pedal. So you have
Right.
2 swell shoes, one for the first
Right,
box, one for the
right.
second. That must take some getting used to and learning how to drive this thing.
It definitely takes getting used to. I feel like it really took Adam, the other organist, and myself I'd say 2 years to really feel like we know what we're doing.
Wow. Well,
And then we're still learning, but I think that really, this organ was designed to play church. It really
Yeah, good.
plays. We do evensong every week here at
Wow.
5:30, and throughout the summer, and so your howls, canticles, and they just sound like they belong here.
you have so much control when you're accompanying over
Yes.
a big choir or a small one. You can,
Yes,
you can match them perfectly.
absolutely.
Well, very good. Well, let's keep going through the swell then. We talked about strings and the flute. What other 8-foot do we have? Is that it?
As far as 8-foot foundations, that's
Okay, so then we go to the 4-foot. We have a 4-foot Gem's horn.
4-foot Gem's horns. If I add that to the horn diapason.
Yeah, that was what I wanted to hear, because it's really almost a principal brightness in that. Usually Gem's horns are somewhere muted and a little farther back, and this stands up to the horn diapason really well.
Yes, and sometimes for Buxtehude and more early repertoire, I like to have the Gem's horn down an octave. It's that slightly more kind of
A smaller scale.
Hauptwerk principle.
It just almost sounds like a small scale principal to me. It doesn't sound like the sort
Right,
of
sure.
wonderiness of a Gem's horn. All right, and then you have a 4-foot flute on
Yeah.
top of that.
Yep. So if we. And here it is with the tremulant. And
Also
here-
harmonic. So
Yes, and here it is with the stopped diapason. Which
Very
is
nice.
which is a nice contrast to the great 8 and 4-foot flutes. And then you can even you can contrast the swell harmonic flute with the great 8-foot harmonic flute. So,
Yeah.
so you have similar tone qualities at different volume levels and different controls.
Right, it gives you a lot of variety for when you're looking for that perfect stop.
For sure, and we do have a 2-foot
Okay.
flute on the swell, so if I add that. So,
Very, very bright and chipper there. Okay, and then there is a mixture up to 5 ranks on top of
yes,
that
so
whole
we do
chorus.
have a mixture, so I add that.
That is a bigger mixture sound than we were getting in the
It
Greeks.
definitely is.
But you can close it down. You can close just the
Yes.
mixture down and leave the rest of the chorus out.
Yeah, I could close the inner box.
So the brightness is still there, but you can bring the volume down.
Yes,
a little
and
bit.
so then like on hymns, for example, if I add that to
Very nice. Oh, we have some reeds over there in this swell too.
yes. So we have 3 8-foot reeds in the swell. We have 8-foot Fragato, 8-foot cornopian, and oboe horn, and they're very different from each other. So the cornopian is your bigger chorus reed. And then the Fragato.
Very different.
Yes, for sure. It's not as strong and a little darker.
And if I wasn't looking at the knob,
Mm-hmm.
you could have convinced me that was the oboe compared to the cornopian.
Oh,
Because
sure,
A lot of
right.
organs, that's what the oboe sounds like. But you have yet another oboe horn,
Yeah,
which is different from each
so I'd
either.
say, again, it's capped and has that horn-like quality, and it's perhaps somewhere kind of a cross between an oboe and an English horn, perhaps. And we do sometimes use that as a chorus reed,
Yeah, it's-
too, for a different kind of
It's got
effect.
some brightness, but definitely
Mm-hmm.
a little softer. And that one is not in the other box, so that one you just have the single expression. But the
Correct.
Fragato, you could make it even softer
Correct, right.
and control it. That's really convenient.
Right. And so one of my favorite sort of hymn playing effects is when you've got a lot of your 8-foot foundation stops on, and you just want to darken the sound a bit. You add all of these 8-foots with the boxes closed, and it just creates a really nice effect. Nice dark
Yeah,
sound.
nice and warm. Very nice.
Right, and you can open the boxes to have be a little more present, or close them to have it just be in the background.
Wonderful.
And we have a 16-foot Contra Fragato in the swell. It's really got a roar.
Is that an extension of the 8-foot Fragato?
It is.
So, okay, so it goes all the way
It
down to
is.
16.
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
Show me how that's used. Nice. It's a very nice sound, yeah. So you got that whole reed chorus in there, and if you super couple, I assume you can get even a big bright.
Right, and one of the things that really impressed me about the tonal finishing process here was that when the organ was about to play on a Sunday for the first time, Jack Bethards didn't feel at the time like the 3 8-foot reed ranks on the swell contrasted enough, so they sort of rethought the 8-foot Fragato, replaced some of the shallots, and made it really contrasting.
That is one thing I've learned about that company. They will not leave the organ alone until it's
Right.
perfect, until they feel they've gotten everything fixed. So that's
Right,
that's amazing
so-
work they do.
It is.
Well, let's go over here to the choir. We've got a whole other box, a whole other set of pipes, and a manual here. Show me what we've got here.
So I'd say the choir here is almost kind of like a solo manual. It mostly has 8-foot color stops, but some of them are accompanying, of course. So we have this beautiful Dulciana. And an 8-foot concert flute, which is a much softer open flute. So for sort of softer Anglican chant accompaniments, my sort of default starting point is to play on the great and have the soft eights from the choir and the swellium. I think those really blend well nicely.
The string and the flute, and then the dulciana and the concert flute over here.
Right.
So, all right, that's lovely.
Right.
Lovely. They're bright but very soft colors there.
And I would say one really underappreciated reed rank these days is the flugelhorn. and the flugelhorn, you add it to the. I like to add. Of course, it can be used as a solo stop, but I like to add it to the foundations to give that sort of just extra little dark edge to it.
Does that sound like by itself? I want to hear just the flute.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a small trumpet, a big oboe. I'm not really sure what you would call
Right.
that. It's just a lovely, interesting
Right.
sound.
Right.
That adds some brightness to those eights. Yeah.
Yes.
You also have an open flute in the choir. You have a stop flute as well.
We do. We have a Lieblich Gedeckt, which I think Jack officially calls semi-open.
Semi-open. Okay.
It's semi-open.
There's a lot of harmonic color in there
Yes.
for being a stop flute. We'll have to look at that one. So you have an open flute and a stop flute on every manual.
We do.
in some regards. So
We
that's-
do. So one of the, if you haven't ever looked at it, I encourage you to look at Jack's tonal color wheel, and his philosophy. I've just completely bought into it because his value is that when you're designing an organ, it's always going to have some limit, right, as to how big it can be, and you should have the maximum versatility. So I think he does that really well.
Yeah, putting in really colorful flutes to give you an option against some of the more subdued ones. So, and that's available at 4 foot as well.
Yes,
Correct?
yeah,
So
yeah. So there are some extensions here to make things a little more versatile. So like here you've got the 8 and 4 foot concert flute, and then
It's a very unique sound, the Lieblich at 8 and 4. But then that gives you the open flute at 8 and 4, and then the Lieblich at 8 and 4, and you can mix and match.
right,
So you
exactly,
get whatever
yeah.
color you're looking for. And then that's also borrowed as a Nazard if you even want to
Yes.
get that brighter sound in there.
Yes, I think that kind of works best as a solo effect. We don't tend to add it to a chorus or something,
Sure,
but
okay.
but it's nice for a solo effect.
You often see composers asking for a Nazard in the choir on the top of something else.
And another nice, interesting combination is to use the concert flute. Actually, with that, so they're
Yeah, you can mix and match.
right.
We're going back down to see, we skipped over the Undamaris, which goes with the Dulciana. So that's our undulating stop there in the choir. Let's hear what that sounds like. Yeah, very nice, very gentle.
Definitely. And then one other nice effect is the 16-foot Dulciana. Rich, warm tone that just
Yeah.
fades into the back. And then when you add the flugelhorn with it, all this stuff.
Yeah, it's almost, you've got a whole swell in a box there. On your choir division, you've got all that color. And you've got 16 foots on every manual. That's fantastic,
Yes.
too. That's wonderful. Well, now we go to our reeds here in the choir. I see 3 of them.
Yes, so the basset horn. I would say sort of a fuller kind of clarinet.
Large clarinet, yeah. And then we have, it's actually borrowed 16 and 8, but that's your big tuba, the big fun
Right,
color.
right.
Let's hear the 8-foot tuba first.
So here's the 8-foot tuba.
Yeah, big and broad. I like it a lot. And then that's available all the way down at 16.
Yes.
And it does
yes.
go all the way down to the bottom there.
Yes. So Jack likes to have when possible, the big 16-foot pedal reed enclosed.
Okay, so that also goes down, plays in the pedal as it too.
Right,
All
right. And that was something Skinner did
I see.
too, actually. But so you can play it. You can be a manual stop. That's with boxes closed.
Oh, very nice. Well, let's talk about the pedal then. That leads us
Sure.
here. Now, like a lot of American organs, most of the pedal is actually borrowed from the other divisions, correct?
Yes.
So let's talk about what we do have that's independent in there.
We have a really strong and effective 16-foot open wood,
Wow.
which is placed strategically in the chamber in the corner. And I think you notice that more and more when you go back.
So it speaks down into the
right
nave.
down the nave, and it really is the big foundation for congregational singing. One of my pet peeves is kind of when organists assume that bright mixtures keep singing going, but that's really not so true. I think it's really strong and effective bass. Really
Okay.
keeps people going. So it's really really strong, and then there's a separate 8-foot principal. So
I was gonna say, the wood has a lot of principal edge to it for being a wooden
Yes.
open wood. Usually those are pretty dark.
it's pretty
and-
big scale.
So yeah, it really fits that principle. It fills the room.
Right.
And then the principal borrows up to 4, correct?
Yeah. So
Yeah, that's bright and gives you a nice, independent line. Even though it's a borrowed stop, it still
Yes.
sticks out. And then we don't have a real 32, but we do have a resultant.
right, and like any 32 of any kind, whether it's real or resultant, it's got better notes and and some
Sure.
that maybe work less well, but overall it works so well in the space. It's so. It's really effective.
I don't know if our microphones actually pick that up effectively. The lowest parts of the organ are the hardest to capture, but in here that really works well.
Absolutely.
I have people that are so disappointed when an organ doesn't have a real 32. But in a room this space and in a chamber that big, you have to know your limits.
Right.
And I would rather have something that's effective like that than somebody shoehorn a fractional length reed or something in there that doesn't really.
Absolutely,
work
and
effectively.
and as you can tell in the space, it really sort of hugs the room a bit, I would say. There's that little rumble.
This is all set in a beautiful Schoenstein console. They do some amazing work, really distinctive features. But yours has a unique control over there on it. Tell me about
It
this
does.
thing over here.
So the first Schoenstein organ I got to know well was when I was in graduate school at Juilliard, and they were installing the organ, which at the time was new, at Christ and St. Stephen's Episcopal Church, which is in Midtown, just about 6 blocks from Juilliard. And Jack put a Rolls-Royce master switch on there.
For starting a Rolls-Royce car.
Yeah, exactly. So it was. I think that was an imitation one, and I just thought, well, that's kind of fun. So Jack actually got a vintage switch here and polished it up, and it's over here, and it controls the lights. It's really sort of an accent piece, but
So, wow, an actual antique Rolls-Royce switch for controlling all your lights. That's amazing. And a nice little personal touch to this beautiful console.
Right, and I think that a nice, clean, but beautiful console makes a big difference, because this is part of our workspace. And when you sit down and there's just enough, there are just enough pistons, there are just enough toe pistons, but there isn't too much of everything, and the materials are beautiful. I still sit here 3 years later and think, I want to practice today. And the materials they use, the ebony and the brass and the pearl, it's just so beautiful. And the brass expression pedals that not only look nice but are very smooth, very comfortable. You can't overemphasize what a great console does for your comfort.
So getting into the organ chamber is easy through these doors that are right below the facade. This used to be an HVAC opening in the wall. And here we are underneath. We come in and we're under the grate. There's regulators for the grate division in the bottom of the grate chest. And standing up, we're behind the facade. We can see all of the tubing to the facade pipes from those chests. It's all very neatly organized. Looking back, the grate pipes are behind us. Now we've moved a little farther into the organ. There's our facade chest, and then the open wood is tucked back here in this corner. You can see the backs and sides of the pipes have actually been painted black so they don't show through the facade. Some creative winding to get all the pipes fit in here. Even some of the metal pipes that are visible have been painted black so that they don't show through. Now we're underneath the grate, and there's a little door that lets us go into the swell box. Here we are underneath the swell. And we come up, and we've got the pedal boarding right there. And all of the relays are right here on the side of the case. And it suggests you should go up and over rather than going in front of the relay so you don't bump them. So we've gone up just a bit, and now we are looking in the lower swell. I should say the lower front swell, because you can see there are shades in the middle of the chamber. And there's the lower rear swell behind us. There's the chest above for the upper swell. So at the edge of the chamber, there's a door, and we are now in the grate division. More of the grate pipes here. Then we've got the mixture and the 2-foot, the 4-foot principal, and the top of the 8-foot principal. 8-foot flute is in here as well. And then behind us, we can see into the lower choir. Sort of. More painted black pipes. And back through the door and back through the swell. And we're going to take the ladder up to get to that walkboard right there. And we're looking down at that walkboard. We've gone all the way up, and now we're in the upper front swell. And we see the oboe, the stopped flute, some tuning instructions there. You see some of the trademark Schoenstein turned stopper handles. And again, there's a door here at the chamber wall, and we go out, and now we are in the upper grate. Here we see the great trumpet, and the capped metal flute, as well as some of the harmonic flute here, I believe. And then behind us, we can see the upper choir. So going back through the upper swell here, so looking down at the walkboard, we have to go across. This takes us right in front of the horn diapason, and to here, there's the opening below for the lower swell. I'm going to step into the upper rear swell here where we see the reeds. So we're behind two sets of shades now. The 16-foot reed comes up from downstairs. And then we step in here and we are into the choir. There's our clarinet right in front of us. The flugelhorn with its capped tops is there, and then there is the big tuba, which is hooded not necessarily for surround directionality, but to keep dirt out of the reeds. The bases of the tuba are wooden, and they're coming up from the floor. A few more stuck over on the wall. And then the base of the concert flute is what you see against the back wall there. So, back through the swell. There's the top of one of the 8-foot stops coming up, I think the string. So down the ladder. There's the relay again, I'll look from the other side. Some tremolo controls. And now we are inside the lower swell. This is our viol and viol celeste, the mixture. There's the 16-foot reed extending up into the upper chamber. Here's the mouths of that 8-foot we saw just a minute ago from up above. And we go into the rear lower choir here. You can see the bottom of the tuba coming up, and then there's our concert flute. It's the wooden one. And then the stopped flute is in front. It's actually a very skinny chimney cap flute, roar flute. Very tall chimneys. There's some Haskell pipes here against the back wall that go into open pipes. And then to get underneath, the walkboard easily flips up there so that you can go down, but not seeing a ladder, I opted not to go down. Alright, back through the swell. We go up and over, and then we're crawling back out into the grate. And there's a little handle there to help us up, and that's the tour of Schoenstein Opus 173.
Joseph, thank you so much for showing us this beautiful Schoenstein organ from 2018. It has been a joy to be here in Tulsa and to hear you play it. It's just a fantastic instrument.
My pleasure, thank you.
And Schoenstein is a member builder of Oboe, the Associated Pipe Organ Builders of America. If you're considering work to your existing organ, you're looking for a new organ, visit apoba.com. You can find their member builders. They all uphold stringent standards of pipe organ building and use of electronics and organs. So we can't recommend those builders enough. We are also here thanks to our sponsors, the sponsors of the Organ Media Foundation, specifically Greg Grant and John Gill. Last year they were both video sponsors, so thank you to the two of you. We are here in Tulsa because of you, so thank you very much. If you would like to become a sponsor of the Organ Media Foundation, you can do that for just $1. Just go to organ.media and click on support. And remember, for streaming classical organ music 24 hours a day, you can visit our 3 streaming stations, organlive.com, Positively Baroque, and The Organ Experience. Joseph, we're headed back to St. Louis, so thank you so much for having us here, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.